Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Dhena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah. I offer my respectful obeisances to His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, and to all of you. You are Vaishnavas, and therefore you are the most worshipable in all the three worlds. Hare Krishna. This is a very important subject matter, the dissemination of transcendental knowledge to the world. And the first and most important place to disseminate the knowledge of Krishna consciousness is to ourselves, because you can't distribute what you don't have. It's important in the process of going through our lives and dedicating ourselves to spreading Krishna consciousness to have a song in our heart. You have to feel blissful in order to distribute Krishna consciousness, because people don't want to take some philosophy from somebody who's morose or frustrated or angry. What would be the use of that? But if people see that you've been able to overcome bad habits, that you're feeling blissful in spite of their ways of arguing with you, that you carry yourself in the world the way Krishna recommends in the Bhagavad Gita, then they'll become naturally attracted to what you have to offer. Not only that, it's the only way to live a real life, is to be absorbed in Krishna consciousness. Because the default mode in the material world is not very attractive. It's not that it's just awkward, it's actually very painful. To live outside the realm of the Brahma Bhuta platform. Krishna says in the Gita that when you're on the spiritual platform, then you're happy. Prasanatma. And nashochati, you have no hankering or lamentation. Akankshati. And this is the way to live. There is a way to do that. It includes every day reading from the Bhagavad Gita and the Srimad Bhagavatam. The panacea, who knows what that means, panacea? Who said that? Yes, tell us what it means.
Cure of all diseases.
Cure of all diseases. The panacea means the cure of all diseases, is to hear every day from Srila Prabhupada's purports. You tell me if there's messages coming in saying people can't hear. It's okay? Okay. So we're also broadcasting on live Facebook. People elsewhere are interested in book distribution. So there's a famous violinist in Russia, Joshua Hevitz. Joshua Hevitz says, if I don't practice one day, I notice it. If I don't practice one day, I notice it. If I don't practice 2 days, my teacher notices it. If I don't practice 3 days, the whole world notices it. And in Krishna consciousness, because the environment that we live in now, which is, in case you haven't noticed, the material world, newsflash, in the Devi Dham, is so oppressive and so distracting that unless one has nityam bhagavata sevaya, constant practice, or at least daily practice that's very intense, then it's a foregone conclusion that one means a living entity in this world, will be overcome by the distractions and the tribulations of material existence. From that position, it's very difficult. Period. Full stop. What to speak of distributing Krishna consciousness? It's very difficult to live a productive life. Most productive life means ante narayana smriti. It's how it comes out at the end. That you're able to, throughout this lifetime, take in the process of Krishna consciousness in such a way that your heart and mind changes, and that you're genuinely attracted to Krishna, and then you're genuinely not disturbed by the lower modes of nature, rajas and tamas. And that you have the wherewithal at the time of leaving the world to deliberately remember Krishna. Call out his name, Hare Krishna. That's what life is for. And to those who have come here, all great souls, for whatever reason anyone's come to Krishna consciousness, whatever their initial motivation is, Krishna says these are great souls. They're pious. And from there, it's important to every day have inspirational sadhana. Means every day you have to have at least a molecule of inspiration from your chanting. If you have a day of chanting where you don't get any inspiration, this is illegal. This is called niyamagraha. You're either chanting just for the sake of doing it, but you didn't reach deep enough to find that sincere desire to get something from Krishna, and you didn't beg for it. And therefore you went away with an empty hand. Or you neglect to chant with attention, or you neglect to chant at all. This is the other side, niyamagraha. So Rupa Goswami says avoid both sides. It's important every day to have inspirational sadhana. And that includes hearing from Srila Prabhupada's books, because in the environment we're in now, we pick up what I like to call mind viruses. Just as we pick up viruses in our computer, and they slow everything down, or they give us misinformation. So in a similar way, just walking around the world the way it is now, or even not going anywhere because of the earlier impressions that I've taken in from my involvement in the material world, and somehow or other I've been involved here for a long time. My thinking process has become disturbed. You need an antivirus program. That antivirus program means you have to hear from Srila Prabhupada's purports. From that, your errant programs will be straightened out or purged from your mind. And you'll have a clear idea of what the purpose of life is. But we can forget in one day, in 12 hours. So, for those who are in the army, and that's what we are here, we're a group of soldiers here, you have to protect yourself first. You have to make sure that you are fortifying yourself every day by chanting really good rounds, which means that you're finding your sincerity of purpose when chanting. And you're actually begging, asking Krishna for something. If you don't beg, he won't give. Has anybody here ever given to a beggar? Why did you do that? Because he asked for it. Don't ask, you don't get. So really you have to ask. Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, you have to beg for the holy name. And I suggest that you have to be on a regular schedule of reading Prabhupada's books. You have to be really clear of when you're going to finish each one of them. Like, if I wake you up at 1 o'clock this morning and say, when are you going to finish the Chaitanya Charitamrita? And you'll sit up in bed and you'll say, I'm going to finish on July 15th, 2020. Because you know that you're reading the correct number of pages every day in order to finish at a certain time. And I suggest that that kind of sadhana is in parallel with the way the Goswamis conducted their sadhana. Sankhya Purvaka Nama Gana Natibi. They counted how much they did. They set an example for us in counting. If you see somebody walking around without counter beads and they have a bead bag, what do you think? Who let this guy in here? Must be CIA. Or not serious. Not counting means not serious. People I meet sometimes, they say, oh, I chant all the time. I'm always chanting, so I don't need to count. We don't buy that. Same thing with reading. Be on a schedule, finish Prabhupada's books. Know when you're going to read the when you're going to finish the Bhagavatam. Takes you only 41 pages a day to finish the whole Bhagavatam all through 12 cantos in 1 year. 1 year. 41 pages. If you want to take 2 years, fine. If you want to take 5 years, fine. If you want to take 10 years, fine. But at least know that you're going to finish it at a certain time and you're going through it systematically. Prabhupada writes in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, unless my followers read all my books, they will take to eating, sleeping, and fall down from the process of Krishna consciousness. So this is the first and most important aspect of book distribution. Have something to distribute. Because actually you're distributing yourself, you're not distributing the book. Because you wouldn't even be distributing the book unless you had an interest in it. And to the degree that you're interested in the book, to that degree, people will notice that you have something to offer. Because it comes from your eyes. It comes from your countenance. It comes from your utsahan, your enthusiasm, which is coming from here. Enthusiasm means the God within, entheos. So you have to be awakened and livened within. And when people see you from across the street, they have to feel, oh, this person has some Shakti. I can't deny it. I have to take this. That's what sells books. And that's what keeps us alive also. You're in the army, don't get killed. Try to avoid being shot and killed or maimed by Maya. There's a lot of ways you can go. You can get maimed. Some people get maimed. You know what that, Mataji? Maimed. What does it mean? She's our resident wordsmith. The word maimed. You know what that means? That means when you're injured and some of your body becomes impaired. Like, say in the war you get your hand blown off or your legs blown off. That's possible. Join the Krishna conscious movement and somehow you mess around and then you ruin your reputation, you get set back by 10 years. Of course, Krishna will always help us to move forward, but try not to get maimed. Don't get blown up. Stay whole and practice your Krishna consciousness without compromise. And don't slip back into a place where you can become injured by the material world. And that's important to be alive in order to distribute Krishna consciousness. So stay alive by keeping yourself very steadily and fixedly in the practice of Krishna consciousness. And hear and chant as much as you can. I suggest that there's a lot of time to hear and chant in the gaps. Just like today, of course we took a little extra time, but Narottam, Priya Prabhu and Abhishek and myself, just over lunch, we read one whole chapter of the Chaitanya Charitamrita. And that was 239 pages. And it was a very sweet and comprehensive description of Sanatana Goswami coming to visit Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Jagannath Puri. We learned so much. And last night, when Narottam Prabhu and what's his name, Ashok? Kashyap picked me up from the airport, we were able to read several very important verses just from the airport back to the temple. I'm not saying don't talk sometimes, but I'm just saying there's a lot of space in the gaps. So I have, in my bag now, I have shlokas, I have my iPad, and if I open it, it's right on the place where I'm reading from. And because I'm counting how far I'm going, it matters to me that I fill in the gaps. Because I'm going somewhere. So be on that kind of an edge with your hearing and chanting. Every advantage you can give yourself to hear and chant better and more will translate into more Krishna consciousness and the wherewithal to spread Krishna consciousness all over the world. Without that, as it says in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, without being empowered by the internal potency, there's no possibility of spreading Krishna consciousness. So that's my first supposition to all of you, is the first law of book distribution is your sadhana must be strong. You really have to dig into sadhana. And that means if you want to be happy, there is no other way to be happy in this life other than to have strong sadhana. So you have weak sadhana, then it's almost, you're in no man's land. The Srimad Bhagavatam says, there's only two people who are really happy in this world. The person who's the Paramahamsa and the person who's a complete fool. Everybody else in the middle actually suffers. However, I would also say that those who are in the middle, but who know that they're doing everything they can to lean into their sadhana, they find relief because they know that they're giving their full attention to what's most important in their life, practicing Krishna consciousness. So, I'll just take a few reflections. A reflection means anything that you heard so far that's stuck in your mind that you can reflect back. Do we have a second microphone also? For the audience? No. Okay, I'll repeat. Go ahead, reflect. Yes, Prabhu.
You mentioned the point of inspirational sadhana.
I mentioned the point of inspirational sadhana.
And that if you don't beg, you don't get.
If you don't beg, you don't get.
So when you chant, then it has to be in that mood of begging.
When you chant, it has to be in the mood of begging.
Daily.
Daily. Yes, thank you for remembering that. Good reflection. Reflect back. What else did you hear? It's easy. It's fun and easy.
Read books every day.
Read books every day.
Purport of Srila Prabhupada.
And read Prabhupada's purports. Yes.
Filling in the gaps.
Fill in the gaps. Yeah, always keep shlokas with you, or always keep your reading device or a book with you. So when there's a gap, sometimes you think the gap's going to be like 2 minutes, right? Someone says, oh, I forgot my coat. No, not here. You don't have coats. I forgot my bead bag. I'm going to run up and get it. So then your mind calculates that's going to take a minute, right? And you think, it's only a minute. So I'll do something else. I'll look out the window or do whatever. But then it turns out it's 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15. What happened to you? Oh, I couldn't get in the room. And then what happened to you? I just looked out the window for 15 minutes. You could have chanted a chapter of Gita. You could have read 20 shlokas. So fill in the gaps. There's a lot of them, especially when you travel, you get in the car, when you're waiting at the bank or the post office. There's room. And if you stay in that zone where you're always filling in the time with hearing and chanting, you'll notice that your bliss quotient goes up. If you're a manager, if you're a parent, if you're a book distributor, you have to have bliss. If you don't have bliss, you're not going to go very far. And the only place you're going to get bliss is from your sadhana. And if you don't have that, then you won't be happy in life. Period. Okay, couple more. Yes?
When we are always in Krishna consciousness, our heart and mind changes.
When you're always in Krishna consciousness, your heart and mind change. Yes.
And Ante Narayana Smriti.
And Ante Narayana Smriti. The goal, as spoken by Shukadeva Goswami to Maharaj Parikshit, of life is to remember Narayan at the end. So get ready for that. When is the end, by the way? Just checking. Shukadeva Goswami was speaking to Maharaj Parikshit, who had 7 days. How many days do we have? 6. We have 7 also. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. One of those days we're going to drop dead. So get ready. And if you get ready for that, that's what you're thinking, I'm getting ready for that, you don't have to become neurotic about it. But you do have to have a little sense of urgency that I'm getting ready for that. If you have that sense of urgency, when you go out to meet people to distribute Krishna consciousness to them, they'll pick up on that sense of urgency. And Prabhupada said that was like the logic of the man in a burning house. As he used to send devotees all over the place, and they didn't know what they were doing, Prabhupada would quote the logic of man in the burning house. My godbrother and godsister Sudama Prabhu and his wife Chintamani, both from America, and Prabhupada called them up to his room in Los Angeles, said, I want you to go to Japan and start a preaching center there, start a temple. They said, Prabhupada, we don't know anything about Japan. We don't speak the language, never been there. Prabhupada told the story of the man in the burning house. He didn't know the local language, but somehow or other he got the message across because it was so important to him. So in a similar way, he said that if you feel that sense of urgency, then you'll get the message across to other people. It doesn't matter if you speak the language or not. If you have that sense of urgency yourself in your own life, people will feel that emanating from you when you go out to distribute books. That's the real technique. Because if you feel it's so important to take to Krishna consciousness because you're taking it seriously yourself, then people will pick up on that mood. They'll see it in your eyes. They'll feel it. People feel you before they hear what you're saying. In fact, it's the vibration that's coming from your heart that comes out in your words that they actually feel, more than some kind of turn of phrase that you say that gets them to take a book, some way of convincing them. It's more intuitive than that, book distribution. It has to do with your lifestyle. That's what they're buying when they take a book and they give a donation. They're feeling you. A couple more reflections. Yes.
When you are distributing the books, you are not distributing the books, but you are distributing yourself.
That's right. When you're distributing books, you're not distributing a book, you're distributing yourself. That's what people are buying, because they don't know what's in the book. But they do know that there's somebody in front of me that's effulgent, that I'm feeling some sincerity from, and that's what they'll buy. Yes, Prabhu, in the back.
So we have to do some time management or
Yes.
make a schedule for reading Prabhupada's books.
Yes.
And if we finish, then start again.
Yeah, that's right. Prabhu, can you write on the board here? Put B.A. Sage page by page. And I've made it easy. We have an app called Be a Sage page by page. It's a free app. You can go to the App Store for Android. Be a Sage page by page. Nice and big. Good. See, you get your message across, one way or the other. Man in the burning house. This is an app for iOS or Android. And this is a place where you can measure how many pages a day you need to read in order to finish in a certain page by page at a certain time. And you can also join Chad. You can go to Read Chad, C-H-A-D, stands for Chapter a Day of Bhagavad Gita. There's a lot of devotees around the world. Thank you very much to both of you. Be a Sage page by page. You can get that app and it will do the rest for you. It'll help you track your reading every day. It's self-explanatory, that app. It will be very helpful. Last reflection, yes?
We are soldiers, so we have to protect ourselves.
You're soldiers. You have to protect yourself. Yeah, don't go out unarmed. Don't dare walk out the door without chanting your chapter of Bhagavad Gita. What do you think this is? It's dangerous. You go out and you think, I'll just go around, look around the world. No. It's dangerous. Unless you're fortified by Krishna's words from the Bhagavad Gita. Unless you've done your good japa. Don't go mixing around with the material energy. It'll take you down really fast. So always run scared, be running scared that Maya can get me at any minute. Never claim to be a liberated soul. Always say, I'm not liberated. Always consider yourself to be the servant of the servant of the servant of the servant, 1,000,000 times removed. That's real protection. Stay in that position. And also, stay on the edge. Take a risk. Life's no fun unless you're taking a risk. If you're in your comfort zone, you're in the wrong zone for growth. Feel more comfortable outside your comfort zone and feel uncomfortable when you're in your comfort zone. When you're in your comfort zone, you should be thinking, I got to get out of my comfort zone. And when you get out of your comfort zone and you're taking a risk for Krishna, or you're pushing yourself for Krishna, then you should feel comfortable. The best risk you can take is to give your time for Krishna, give your resources to Krishna, and also go out into the great unknown world where anything can happen and risk being rejected for presenting Krishna consciousness. That's the healthiest thing you can do. Did you all know you have a spiritual body? Do you know how to get blood for your spiritual body? By being rejected. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta said this. You get chidrakta, that means spiritual blood, for your chid sharira, means your spiritual body, by going out and teaching Krishna consciousness to people who don't understand or appreciate you, and therefore they reject you. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur said, this is the way you get spiritual blood for your spiritual body. So if you stay in your comfort zone and you don't go out to meet these people who are just willing to help you by rejecting you, then you'll become anemic. It means you won't have enough blood cells, white or red, I don't know, any doctors in here, in order to be healthy. Be healthy. The reason we go out on book distribution, it's not for some score, it's not for some marathon, it's for our own purification. It's because it's the most authorized place where you can go out and challenge yourself to take shelter of Krishna, because of the way it is when you go out into public. Every time you go out, you don't know what's going to happen. And you have to reinvent yourself every time you walk out the door. And it takes courage to walk out the door, doesn't it? Say yes.
Yes.
Everybody say yes. Yes. It takes courage to walk out the door. When you keep doing that over time, and you start developing confidence in yourself that you're willing to take a risk to go out into the great unknown, because you start to realize that that's where your real comfort zone is. When you're outside your perceived comfort zone, that's when you really start feeling happy, because you realize, I'm only happy when I'm taking shelter of Krishna, I'm taking a risk. And it's a great risk to walk out the door, because every single time you have to pray to Krishna. I've been going on book distribution since 1973, and every time I go out, I still think, what's going to happen? I don't know what's going to happen. Especially when people follow me and they want to see some magic. I'm looking at Krishna going, okay, Krishna, are you going to make some magic? Or am I going to be left here standing holding the bag full of books? And that's a good place to be, because then you renew yourself. You renew your dedication to sadhana. When you go out on book distribution and you realize, I don't have as much spiritual potency as I need, then you go back and the next day you chant harder, with more focus. You put your hand out when you chant and you beg, Krishna, could you put something in here? Something, at least a molecule, anything. If you're chanting like that, so that you can go back out with potency, then when you go back out and you realize how important it is to hear and chant, these two things together keep you moving forward on two tracks in Krishna consciousness. Or as I like to say, it's the most nutritious kind of practice. Just like there's rice. Who here likes rice? Let me see. There's only 3 people in here who like rice. This is India. You eat rice here. Okay. If you like rice, how about you like dal? Mung dal. 2 people. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, for everyone else, you don't like it, cover your ears. I'm going to tell everyone who does like these 2 things. They're both good foods. Can I get a yes on that? Yes. Now when you mix them together, you get a superfood. That means 42% more nutrition when they're eaten together. This is according to Shastra because I read it in Jamuna's cookbook. She said, according to scientific studies, there's a synergy. The enzymes in the rice, the beans, they fuse. You get 42% more nutrition from eating them together. Same way, if you're doing hearing, chanting Prabhupada's books, and you're going out into the great unknown, challenging yourself to walk beyond the threshold of your door and your house, apartment, or temple, and going out and challenging yourself for a while, at least once a month. When you put those 2 things together, you get super sadhana. These 2 things. So we're not going out for the score, we're going out for ourselves because it's the highest sadhana you can do. That, according to Shukadeva Goswami, who's recounting the mood of Lord Shiva. In the 8th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, we know a great disaster arose when the churning of the milk ocean was underway, then poison came out, threatened the whole universe. That's scary. Things like that happen in the material world. That all of a sudden, when you think everything's just rosy, your refrigerator's full, you have a full tank of gas, you have enough in the bank account, looks like a good job, you probably won't get fired for maybe 1,000 years. Everything's good, and then some huge thing comes up. You get a phone call that changes everything. Or there's a disaster somewhere in the world that suddenly all your stocks are now worthless, or they drop by 20%. Any of these things can happen in the material world and do regularly happen. So in churning the ocean of milk, looking for fortune, the poison came out. Everyone was going to die. So they went to Lord Shiva and they asked for help. Lord Shiva agreed to swallow that and protect everybody. And there Shukadeva Goswami says, Lord Shiva's the Vaishnav, and therefore he's thinking that how can I do something for others so that they can be elevated and they can be protected. Tapyante lokatapena sarva prayasojana parama aradhanam tanti purushasya kilatmanaha. Shukadeva Goswami said, this is the mood of Lord Shiva, that do some austerity, some tapasya. What kind of tapasya is the best? Parama aradhanam. The best service is take tapasya in the form of helping other people to come to Krishna consciousness. He said that's the best way to worship Krishna, who's within the heart of every living being. Take some trouble. So that's why we go out. It's a worship of Krishna. There is no higher worship of Krishna than to go out and give Krishna consciousness to people who don't know about it, or who are averse to it, or need a reminder to take Krishna consciousness again, and to get them enlivened. That is a temple. Every body is a temple because Krishna is there within the heart. And when we do that, Krishna becomes pleased with us. When Krishna is pleased, we advance in devotional service. That's why we go on book distribution. So take this as a part of your sadhana, at least 50% of your sadhana, that you need to go out in order to bring out that awareness of the living entity within the heart, and that Krishna's there with him. And also, you'll notice when you're out distributing books that some people were waiting for you. Now when you see that, you may think, I wish I was as enthusiastic as this person to take to Krishna consciousness. You'll find Shiksha Gurus everywhere you go, Because you'll find people are more interested in Krishna consciousness than I am when I go out. I'll tell you a story about that. I was in North Carolina. It was our first MSF with the North Carolina community. Of course, no big thing for you, but it was 108 degrees that day, which Celsius in the 40s. And we were going door to door. That was a little tapasya, 108 degrees. I had a group with me. We had split up into various groups. I had a group with me with 7 devotees. I was showing them the joy of going door to door. You knock on someone's door, and then you're Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Ram, Ram, Hare Hare. What's going to happen now? You don't know who's going to open the door. It's always a mystery. It's always exciting, just depending on Krishna. Door opens. There's a man who's seriously physically impaired at the door. He can barely speak, and his movements look distorted, disjointed. I go ahead and show him the book, and he has a nurse assistant living with him because his condition is so bad. This man starts to look at the book as if it's the most important thing he's ever seen in his life. The nurse comes out and says, he doesn't want it, we don't want it. She tries to take it back from him and pass it back to me. But he wouldn't let go. So I kept talking to him and explaining to him. And every time I was tell him a point about the Bhagavad Gita, I showed him the changing bodies. I said, look, we start here, we end up here, we're just passing through. Life's like a quick journey, and we're just passing through. We're not our bodies. He was He was responding. The nurse became frustrated. She couldn't pry the book out of his hand, so she stepped back a little. So at the end of the presentation, I didn't want to deprive him of the opportunity to offer a donation. This is an important point. We're not asking for donations because we need money. We have Krishna. What do we need money for? We're asking donations because when somebody gives to Krishna, it gives them an opportunity to come closer to him. It's a sacrifice. It's a token sacrifice, but it's something to put in the sacrificial fire where they'll actually get some eternal benefit. Not only that, they'll have the wherewithal to read the book. Prabhupada used to say, if they give their $10, then they'll walk away and think, what did this rascal sell me for $10? Now I'm going to read it. In fact, not to divert from the story, I'm still in the story in North Carolina, but in Jagannath Puri 2 years ago, we had our big yatra, which I'm just heading to now, where we distribute lots of books, 5,000 books every yatra in 5 days. And during that, we had a big Mahaharinam right out in front of the Jagannath temple. We set up a book table and our deities, and we were distributing books, and I was going from person to person, and there was a professional beggar, and she came up to me while I was talking to somebody else. She kept going, ring, ring, ring. And so finally I turned around and I handed her a book and a lollipop. And she said, no, like she was saying, no, give money. And I said, no, you give money to me. So then this people were already watching this. You know how in India there's always a lot of people. So they started watching and they go, here's a big American. Here's a little Aryan beggar with, bandages wrapped around. I don't know if there's needed or not. But now there's this back and forth going. I'm going, you give. She goes, no, you give. But I was absolutely convicted that she should give. Not for me. I don't need the money. For her. And she should set the example. She should be an upright citizen among beggars to show when you're supposed to give. So I was very determined, and I told her no, and I kept saying no. And so finally, This smile broke out on her face. She reaches in, she pulls out a sack of coins, and she gave me the coins. And the crowd that was watching by that time was quite considerable. They were like, because we have the right. We're delivery people. We're working on behalf of Krishna. We're not working for ourselves. We're not asking for ourselves. We're supposed to deliver. Krishna, I gave this. This is what they gave back for you. Here it is. I'm bringing it back to you. That's why we ask for donations. So when I asked this physically impaired man at his door for a donation, that was what I had in my heart and mind. The nurse went crazy. She said, no, that's it, you go. She started to close the door, but he wouldn't let her. And apparently, she was an employee, so she had to comply ultimately. And now they went back and came back with $10. I took the $10 and gave it to our treasurer who was standing there. And I was thinking, this definitely going in the hundi. Then I said, for the last part, now I just want to teach you this prayer. Do you believe in the power of prayer? Again, the nurse comes, no, that's it. You've had enough. You just go. But he wanted to chant. He wouldn't let her close the door. So I said, please repeat after me. I said, Hare Krishna. He went, no. I said the second, Hare Krishna. He said, Hare Krishna. I went through the whole mantra. He strained with every sinew in his body in order to say the mantra so sincerely. And when I finished, and he finished, the door closed. He had a Bhagavad Gita. He chanted the mantra. He gave $10. I turned around. I had 7 devotees with me. They had tears coming down their cheeks. I asked one devotee, I said, what's the matter? And she said, I wish I had that same desire to chant Hare Krishna as he did. She was renewed by watching somebody really beg for the Maha Mantra against all obstacles. I take it for granted. I got a bead bag, I'll sit down and chant, drop a period, I'll just do it. But this person's starving. They didn't get a whole body. They're locked in this suburban house with a person who's not very friendly, a nurse. He's dependent on others. And he saw the Maha Mantra coming. He knew what it was. Super Soul was saying, this is important. And he tried so hard with every sinew in his body to chant the mantra. And what do? I just fall asleep. Shame. The devotees were all feeling like that. That's why you go out on book distribution. For what it makes of you to learn to hear Krishna's voice through every living entity who's out there teaching you. This is why you're here. To go with great humility from house to house and beg. Feel what it's like to be a beggar for Krishna. The great Bhaktivinoda Thakur did it to build his temple in Mayapur. Lal Babu built the Lal Babu temple, which is famous. He's mentioned in the Nectar of Devotion. That he was a rich person, but then he begged. And Krishna recognized him. You go out and you think, oh, what if someone sees me or whatever? Oh, yes. I'm doing this for Krishna. Someone told me that sometimes people ask, do they make you do this? Part of the Hare Krishna movement? No, we volunteer because it puts us in a subordinate position to serve Krishna. So these are the most important aspects of distributing Krishna conscious literature. Then you have to get books, because these books are rare treasures. Don't take for granted the fact that we can print on high-speed printers. This is a disease of the modern world, entitlement. or taking things for granted. Each one of these books was painstakingly rendered by great souls. And even the physical toil of writing a book, even in the modern age, is considerable. What to speak of back then, when you had to write it by hand and have it copied and passed down. Think of the ways in which these books were protected over the many generations so they could come to us. And somehow or other now, we have the wherewithal to print in mass quantity. And now consider the fact that you live in a country that has a modicum of freedom, where you can pretty much go where you want and distribute books. I mean, there's a little restriction here or there, but you're not going to be thrown in jail and tortured to death for doing this. In other countries, this, what you have here, the availability, the freedom to do this, it's not possible. So get these books. These are the most valuable assets that we have in the Krishna consciousness movement. They're more valuable than any other asset that we have. And that's why Prabhupada went to great lengths to make them available. Next is, remember, the living entities are actually looking for something. And if you show it to them, those who are ready for it will take it. And just the other day, 2 of our kids, we have a lot of kids who go out on book distribution, 150 kids. And 2 of them who are now in their teens were working the table at our Kirtan Oasis. It's a festival we hold once a month, where we have Kirtan and Prasadam and all kinds of people, book distribution. And one of the kids, Aprameya, he was saying, his realization was, he was running into a string of people who weren't taking. So he got a little discouraged. So he went and did something else at the festival. He moved back, crying. And as he walked away, Aprameya was thinking, oh, he's trying, it won't work, it's too hard tonight. But later on he came back and he saw Anshu was selling so many books. Someone gave him $20, took 3 books. And Aprameya said, then I realized the importance of being persistent. Continue to show people. I used to do this for some time. I ended up having to go out by myself on book distribution. I'll spare you the details of how that happened, but I was in a position where I had to go out by myself for several years. So I came up with a system to get myself motivated, so I'd be by myself and I'd still keep doing my service. Should I tell you what it is? Yes. Okay, I made a little chart. And on the chart, I had 6 categories. And I'd carry this chart with me. And one of them was that I'd approach somebody or I'd call them and they wouldn't acknowledge me. Has this ever happened to any of you? Yes. How'd you like it? Just fine? And then the second ones, I called them, they acknowledged me, but then they rejected me and just kept walking. Has that ever happened to you? Yes. How'd you like that? You liked it a lot, right? Then the next one was, I called them, they acknowledged me, they came over, they looked at the book, and then they rejected it. Has that ever happened to you? Yes. How'd you like that? Just fine, right? Then there was one where I called them, they acknowledged me, they came over, they looked at the book, and they bought it, but they gave a really small donation. Has that ever happened to you? Yes. How do you like that? Then there was one, this is number 5 now, that I called them, they looked, they came over, they gave the book, and they gave a decent donation. Has that ever happened to you? Yes. Did you like it? Yes. Okay. And then there was the final one, I called them, they looked, they came over, they took the book, and they gave a huge donation for some reason. How'd you like that? Well, my secret was that I liked them all the same. It didn't matter to me because I was just filling out my chart. I was by myself and my mind, me and my little mind. And this chart was what, like Hillary Clinton said before the last election, I'm the only one standing between you and Armageddon. This chart was the only thing standing between me and Armageddon with my mind, being by myself. So every time I call somebody, whatever the reaction was, I just mark it down on the chart. And to me, it was all the same. I didn't care which category it came in. All I cared was I was filling out the categories. And I saved them. And every time when I think, oh, I want to go out by myself, I look, you're just going out to fill out the chart. Doesn't really matter. And when I found out over 3 days, 5 days a week, it always filled out the same. It always came out at an average over a week, all the same. And so your mind may come in and challenge you, like this is hard or whatever. No, it's just what it is. It's just you doing your service. I'll teach you another little trick if you don't want to make a chart. This is easier. You want a trick how to go out without being in any anxiety? Yes. And never fearful, never worried? I'm not convinced that you're interested. Yes. I'm still not convinced at all. Because this could be very valuable, Okay, so now I want you to feel behind your head, right above your neck, there's a little switch. Now when you flip that switch, it turns off all your emotions. No more fear, no more worry, no more anxiety, no more discrimination. Kind of like a robot. If you tell a robot what to do, it doesn't get all worried about it, does it? It just goes, okay, and it goes out and does the work. So there's robot mode. So when you're ready, you just flip the switch. You ever have to clean the house and you thought, like, I don't want to do this? Go on robot mode. Just like, okay, enough human, just turn on robot. Okay. Clean the house, robot, okay, I'll clean the house. And book distribution too. It's like, I don't want to go out. It's like, flip the switch. Click, go out. Just fill in the blanks and go out and do your work. And Krishna says that in Bhagavad Gita. Just do your work, but be detached when you do it. Don't worry about the results. That's up to me. And if you learn to do that day after day, you start actually developing self-realization. Because that's enlightened work that you're doing for Krishna. And learning not to be attached. You're just the messenger. And finally, we talked about first your sadhana must be strong, right? Talked about just get books and don't take them for granted. The more you show, the more you sell. And who knows the fourth law of book distribution? Narottam? Organized. So you can do wonders when you organize. It's amazing what human beings can do. NASA came up with management systems to make sure their rockets went off on time because they had forced efficiency. They had a time they were working in. That's the beauty of the monthly Sankirtan festival. You have a point in time every month when you're all going out, and it's something to work towards for 29 days to get ready for the next one and make improvements, try to fill in the gaps and fix what didn't work the last time. And as you continue to do that over time, you'll notice the organization starts to develop strength, momentum. And you can go from a tiny little organization into really an empire. How did Apple get so big? Started with a couple of guys working in their father's garage. Steve Jobs worked out of his father's garage for space. They had some ideas. But they used to get together and brainstorm how to make this better, how to make it work the next level. And they just kept doing that. And now it's become a fairly successful organization around the world, in the corporate world. Wouldn't you say? Fairly successful. Anybody can do that. In your life, if you take time, consciousness to organize, figure out a place for everything in its place. How do we get from here to here? What are the obstacles? How to overcome the obstacles? What goals are we shooting for next? Use all the techniques that are available and all the technology that's available that everyone uses to develop their companies. Use it for book distribution. All the organizing that you use to keep your family in a neat, tidy environment, or keep your finances straight. Use it all for Krishna service, for expanding book distribution. And you can go from just a few devotees a few dozen devotees, a few hundred devotees, to thousands, to tens of thousands, to millions, you can do. This is possible by organization. So now I'll take some questions. And let me just tell you one thing before you ask any questions. Do we have a few more minutes? And that is that when you go out on book distribution, there are anomalies. Mataji, tell us what the word means. You're the designated. Anomaly. Anomalous means? Somebody look on their smartphone on the dictionary and tell them the exact meaning of anomaly.
Drawback.
Word for the day. What?
Drawback.
Throwback? That's what it means?
Drawback.
Rawback?
Drawbacks. Disadvantage.
Disadvantage. Drawbacks.
Yeah, drawbacks.
Okay. Do you have it? The definition on your... Tell us.
Anomaly means something that is different from what is normal or usual.
Anomaly means something which is different from what is normal or usual. Okay? Now, in the course of going out to distribute books, you're going to find anomalies. Some people are going to say some stupid stuff or some challenging stuff. If it's 1 out of 100, we don't care. It's an anomaly. If it's 1 out of 50, we don't care that much either. Even if it's 1 out of 25, it doesn't make that much difference. If it's 1 out of 3, that's something you have to deal with. So if when you're asking questions, don't go for the 1 out of 100 question where someone says, I don't believe in God. We're looking for ripe fruits. People are already open. We're not trying to convince everybody. We're looking for people who already have a modicum of innocence. They're open to taking our books and the message. So you don't have to worry too much about anomalies. Is that okay? Now, would you like to ask a few questions? When I say 3, go. Okay, 1, 2, 3, go. Yes.
So the question is, what if one is, this is about inspirational sadhana.
This is about inspirational sadhana.
So,
You can pan the crowd a little bit when they're talking, because
so what if one is not able to have inspirational chanting?
what if one's not able to have inspirational chanting,
inspirational reading?
inspirational reading?
What should he do?
What should we do?
Yeah, and how one can overcome
And how can one can overcome and be inspired? You should cry. If you cry that, Krishna, why can't I have inspirational sadhana? This is a good place to be when you're chanting your rounds. Krishna, how come I couldn't get even 1 molecule of real inspiration or mercy from you? This is Madhavendra Puri's prayer. Oh my Lord, I couldn't get any mercy from you. I couldn't get anything. That's a good feeling to have. It's an awareness that I'm not inspired, I don't have anything. Try chanting like that and crying that, Krishna, I couldn't get anything. That's different from falling asleep. It's different from thinking about other things, like I'm just meditating on what's going to happen after prasadam today when I'm chanting. If you're actually worried about why I couldn't get any inspiration, and you lean into that when you're chanting and say, Krishna, why couldn't I get anything? Why can't I get any taste? I'm too low. If you chant like that, you're inspired. And you'll find that it's inspiring. It means you have to be really, you have to have your hand out. You really got to want something. If you're just chanting for the sake of chanting because you got to finish your rounds, that's niyamagraha. If you're chanting because you need something, Krishna, I need something from you. I need some mercy. I need some inspiration so that I can have inspirational sadhana. Does that help? Follow-up question.
There's a small question, Guruji, regarding application. So whatever we read or hear,
So a small question regarding application.
so
I'm just repeating his question, so go ahead.
so if after a long time, if whatever we are hearing and reading, if we are not applying in life,
After a long time, if we're not applying what we're hearing and reading,
then the question comes that where I'm going wrong.
the
And
question
when we
comes
see
where
others-
I'm going wrong.
when we see others, like they are marching ahead,
You see others marching ahead.
and we're still struggling to whatever we have read.
We're
not
still
able to apply.
struggling to apply what we've read.
What
Then
should one do, Prabhuji?
cry. Say, Krishna, why I couldn't apply this? It's really about sincerity. There's nothing more important than crying. Prabhu,
Very high percentage in India, when we approach, they say, oh yes, I have Bhagavad
high
Gita."
percentage of people say, that I already have Bhagavad Gita.
So,
Well, is that a big surprise?
so how
So how to deal with that?
people?
Yes. Well, I can just say that if I was in America and I went around selling Bibles, people would say the same thing. Because I come from a Christian country. And they would probably think I was nuts. Like, I already have a Bible. So, what I do is I go around that. Because people in India, if you try to sell them a Bhagavad Gita, they'll feel insulted. Like you're trying to tell them what they feel they should already know or should already be doing. So I don't actually when I meet Indians, I don't hand them a Bhagavad Gita to start with. I don't hand them anything. I just make friends with them and I tell them what we're doing, which is something I tell them that you already know this better than me. Your grandmother memorized Bhagavad Gita. You've had Bhagavad Gita in your family for many years, so you know this. We're trying to spread the teachings of Bhagavad Gita through starting Bhagavad Gita schools, printing Bhagavad Gitas in many different languages. And today it's a fundraiser. We're collecting money. And we use it to spread the Bhagavad Gita. Then they can give. And they'll give, and afterwards you can give them a Bhagavad Gita. But if you give them to it first, it'll come right back at you. That's one technique that's worked very well for me. And the other one is, if I'm going to hand them a Bhagavad Gita, as I'm handing them the Bhagavad Gita, I say, this is not for you. Do you have a Bhagavad Gita in here I can see, or another book? Okay, Prabhu, you stand here. This is not for you. This is not for you. This is not for you. Because they're just about to tell me why it's not for them. Because I already have Bhagavad Gita, I already know Bhagavad Gita, my grandmother memorized Bhagavad Gita. But I already preemptively know that they're going to say that, so I'm saying it's not for you. So their mind's going back and forth, and finally they get the book in their hand. It's not for you, it's not for you, it's not for you. I say, this is for others. Because you already know Bhagavad Gita. Your grandmother memorized Bhagavad Gita. And today what we're doing is spreading Bhagavad Gita through people like you who already know Bhagavad Gita. So we're giving it to you, and the last person already gave a donation, so you could take it. And everyone's carrying it forward so the next person can pass it on to other people. And then they feel like, okay, that challenge isn't there. Give him a hand. He did really good. Give him a hand. Come on. Thank you. So those are a few ways, and you can also go, if you want, you can go into more detail with people who are a little bit intelligent to explain to them why this Bhagavad Gita is different from others, the commentaries coming down and so forth. But I gave them in the order of how well they worked for me, starting with the first one. More questions? Yes?
I have a question. When I am distributing the books, so I distribute, I sell the books.
When she's distributing books, she sells the books.
When I fail to sell,
When you fail to sell,
I just give the book.
I just give the book.
Expect money from the person.
Don't expect money from the person.
Do you think that is a good way?
Do I think it's a good idea?
Because I wanted to just distribute Even though the person is not giving you money,
Even if the person doesn't give money, you wanted to distribute anyway. Just give the book.
So do you think that is right?
Do I think it's right? It depends on the person. Because if the person paid attention and has a modicum of interest in the book and isn't giving because they don't have anything else to give, then I think it's fine. If the person is disrespectful, the person doesn't appreciate what you have and the energy that you're taking to show it to them, then I think giving it to them is a mistake. Because Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, we shouldn't teach this message to people who are not devoted or austere. So how do we know? We know because when we talk to each individual, they give us their attention, and we can, as living entities, appreciate what kind of attention they're giving us. And if you want to see people experience austerity, just ask them for a donation. It's like right up there with a cold shower in a cold morning. As I give a donation, and people are like, do I have to? That's the bane of the living entity in the material world. They're so attached to this idea that they have some protection from their money, so they're giving it up. So the answer is, it really depends on the person. I think it's fine, personally. I do it all the time, and our bias is towards getting books out, not getting Lakshmi for them. But we want to find proper homes for the books. If you just stand on the street corner and just wing books out at people, they'll end up in the garbage can. But if you stop and you interview the person and you find out if they're worthy to take the book, and if they offer some attention back, some appreciation, or they give a donation for the book, which is another way of showing appreciation very consciously, then it's a much better situation. Does that help? Okay. Narottam Prabhu, what time were we supposed to stop? 7 minutes ago?
8:30 was the scheduled time.
Okay. So I'd like to honor your time, and Prabhu, we'll just, because you haven't had a chance yet, let's have last question.
One question by his guest, Shri Mohan Prabhu. He's asking that what
This is a question from
his guest, Shri Mohan Prabhu.
Shri Mohan Prabhu. There's Shri Mohan right there.
Want to speak in English.
Okay, and you're translating for him.
He's asking what should be the standard of devotees who are going in bus, Sankirtan bus party.
What should be the standard devotees going on the bus party?
The sadhana standards.
The sadhana
To
standards.
maintain in bus party.
To maintain on the bus party. Because it's close quarters on buses, and one of the purposes of going out on buses is to really be focused on sadhana together. It's like a really tight ashram situation. It's important that devotees have a strong sense for following the sadhana carefully. If you get somebody who's not following, and it's in such close quarters, it'll affect the whole bus party. So it's good to keep a high standard. And everybody should keep a high standard anyway, but especially in those kinds of situations, it's noticeable if they don't. So thank you very much for taking your valuable time to come out here tonight, and I want to appreciate the work that you're doing with Narottam Priya to develop this party. The sleeping giant in India is the congregation. Congregation can do alone, just by doing once a month. If everybody in this country, everybody who's connected to Krishna consciousness takes an opportunity to go out once a month, you can do more than all of India is doing right now. Just in the congregation, you can quadruple book distribution in India. So you're setting an example here, and this will grow. So please keep up the good work, and thank you very much. Premanande, Nitai Gaura Hari Bo, Hari Bo, Hari Bo, Nitai Gaura Hari Bo, Nitai Gaura Hari Bo, Hari Bo, Nitai Gaura Hari Bo. Pachakalpataruscha Kripasanabheva cha Patitanam Pavanibhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Nantakoti Vaishnaviniki Jai.
We thank His Grace Vaisesika Prabhu for enlightening us by once chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Hare. So Prabhuji has written a book called Our Family Business. This is on the things that he has spoken about and elaborated on the principles of book distribution, high sadhana, and his personal realizations and examples. So anyone who wishes to purchase this book, it's available for 320 rupees. And Prabhuji will be willing to sign it for you. So those who wish to purchase, you please come from this side. Also this Sunday, we have our monthly Sankirtan festival. So we go out, few devotees from here, we go out once a month for book distribution. So that is this Sunday from 5 to 7 p.m. The others, many of you who don't have experience of book distribution, if you are inspired after today's session and if you wish to come, there is, for the Prabhus, there is Hitesh at the back. So raise your hand. You can contact him, and Matajis can contact Varsha Mataji at the back. Please raise your hand. Please join us and experience for yourself what Prabhuji spoke today, this Sunday, 10th February, 5 to 7 p.m. Locations they will share with you. Hare Krishna. Those wishing to take the book, please come.
This is not my book. I gave it to the BBT. This, whatever books that you purchase, it goes on your score. The money's for your team, not for me.
Prashadam is next door.
Go Premanande Haribo!
Marman, Nachari Marman, Nachari Marman, Nachari Marman, hey, Nachari Marman, Nachari Marman, Nachari Marman, Nachari Marman.